guys? I'm Gary. My channel name is @Crypto on YouTube. I majored in economics and game theory, so I talk about tokenomics, everything around new blockchain projects. So check me out, @Crypto on YouTube.
Wait.
What are we doing? We're doing this? What do we got?
He was nominated for Best NFT Influencer, one of the first. He tied the guy by the name of Crypto Stash. Couldn't make it here today. Crypto Stash says, I can give him the belt. You're going to have to share it with him. Here you go, brother. Alright, the next guy up here, I don't know if you know him. I mean, he's a good looking guy. I don't know if you heard of him. His name is Ben Armstrong, Bitcoin Crypto. Get up here.
If you're not subscribed to my channel, you're not doing it right.
Man, you know I got something for you.
Yeah.
Stay here for a second. So, all my awards are pretty much done. I love it done. There's one that actually has value. It is the golden upvote. Why does it have value? Because it's 100% chosen by the fans. Fans have to go in and write someone's name and spell it correctly. And so whoever gets most right votes wins. We had 15,200 votes this year, and with a staggering 50% of the vote, Bitcoin Crypto wins for the third year in a row. Absolutely. Then you got all the credit. You got all the street credit in the world. We need to introduce the guy who needs some more street credit. Mind your biz, Seth Extrada. Yeah. I don't know. Go ahead, Sam.
Alright guys, you can sub to my channel by going to sum.myb.lol. Yes, that's a weird URL. When you follow it, you're going to automatically subscribe to my YouTube channel. And I've got like 4 seconds left, so here's what I'm going to do a sec. I'll talk to you. I'm going to do some push-ups.
All right, you got it. Wow.
What you see on top of 7 Strong's back is the other golden upvote belt. Unfortunately, Ben is tied this year with a guy by the name of Rand Noir, Crypto Banter. Crypto Banter was supposed to do a show here, a live show, but I don't know what happened. You got canceled to show up, so I'm going to let Seth keep that. He'll let Crypto Banter when he gets a chance. Who am I forgetting? Crypto Blood here yet? Crypto Blood? Hey, get up here, you're late. Maybe a little bit real with Ben Armstrong, I don't know. No, we're gonna have a debate.
I keep it real, y'all know that.
Keep it real, Nate. Yeah, I'm from DET, Detroit. Thank you guys for attending today. You can follow me on YouTube at CryptoBlood, CBTV, and on Twitter at CryptoBlood_. Thank you.
Oh, good. All right, and then the hour, the last guy, the most important person on this panel, sorry, Ben, is a guy by the name of Justin J. Chains Escardo. Did I say that right? I said it right. And this is his baby. He's your host. I'm going to toss this mic to him right after I give him his belt. This is a HODL belt sponsored by Monarch Token. A guy by the name of Robert Beals wanted to honor people he thought were doing selfless acts in the space. You can't win this belt. This is awarded. And we're giving it to JJ's and all of BitSquad. Amazing, and it helps guys like Bryce, Hat, Seth, and Blood grow their channel. It's amazing. Here's your belt. Take it away. Get off the stage. I'm terrible at this.
I'll just turn this thing up. Here we go.
Does this thing work? Here we go. Thank you. We will gladly accept this on behalf of the entire BitSquad because you guys make all of this happen. Benjamin, we love you, brother. All right, well, normally when we start the show around the blockchain, we have a fun little introduction for everybody. But Adam, thank you for doing that for us. All right, so today on Around the Blockchain, now if you're not familiar with the show, it is on Bitcoin Crypto, which is the home of the BitSquad and the largest crypto channel in the universe, I'd like to say. The BitSquad is the best. This is around the blockchain. Typically, this is a show that is on YouTube and it's a little more digitized, but everybody is going to be keeping their own score. So if you are in the audience and you like what you're hearing, make a little noise. And these guys are writing the score. We'll make sure that they don't cheat too much, Ben. We're going to watch you. Because we know he's already put $1 million on his thing. All right. So originally, this show was going to be held in the Metaverse tent. So everything I planned was around the Metaverse. We're not in the Metaverse. We're here at the alpha stage. Bunch of alpha men up here. There's no ladies allowed. Sorry, ladies. We love you. My wife is good. Well, no. My baby actually had a blowout back. Sorry, man. All right. So again, we got a great panel. We got Steve Aguirre, Hack Crypto, Seth Estrada of Me the Biz, Crypto Blood, Ben Arm from Bitcoin Crypto, and my man Rice, TDS. All right. Let's see here. Typically, at this point now, we would check the market watch. I don't know what Bitcoin is at. I know that we had a little dump.
Audience, what is Bitcoin at?
Someone check their portfolio.
57,195.
57,195.
All right, what's ETH? Now let's know what was ETH at?
46,49 is going
Oh,
up.
I was gonna say 46.50. I was gonna guess.
See, he's already trying to get himself points. Should he get a point for that or no? No.
That's so Ripple, it's $10, bro.
Audience gets a point for that.
Audience gets a point for that. All right, so now like, we've changed the format of the show where we'll start it off with a lightning round. It's really just to kind of get everybody in the mood, get your chat. Audience.
Negative.
All right, so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go start with Rice. We'll move down the list, down the line here to answer this first lightning question. And that is going to start right now. So everybody here has either seen the movie, read the book, or listened to the audiobook Ready Player One, right? I assume that everybody has done that. Which, in my opinion, the audiobook was fantastic, way better than the movie, but the movie really did a great job of illustrating what the metaverse could be, right? I would think that it really, I know my parents even could understand what it is, which is interesting. But in your opinion, Rice, how far off from what you saw or what you experienced with Ready Player One is the true metaverse going to look like? And you can take about 30 seconds.
I would say that we're just a few years away from actually achieving that, if not sooner. You see all this advancement going towards the metaverses. You see Facebook with the name change to Meta. You're seeing all this growth in the space. I definitely see people putting a lot of work towards it and a lot of development towards it. So I think for the next couple of years.
Wonderful. Let's give yourself 2 points. I will also give points. If you guys don't clap or say give them some points.
You get a point for that.
Hello. All right. So in terms of the metaverse, I co-founded a company called Grow Your Base. We're the 8th largest landowner in Sandbox. And it has been the wildest ride, seeing the one-by-ones go from $40 to now $15,000 in the last year and a half. But in terms of what I've seen personally and where we're at, it's still very, very early with Sandbox Alpha coming out on Monday. Seeing that was only like a small, teeny tiny little glimpse. Whereas Ready Player One, like my guy here in the front row, wearing almost a VR headset. What is that, by the way?
He's in the metaverse.
Mirror vision. Okay, right on. Well, in terms of Ready Player One, where you're actually extracting more value in the metaverse than you do in your real life, I think that we're maybe 10 years away from that. Could be 5, but based on the Philippines pulling value from Axie Infinity so quickly, people making full-time entire incomes, I think for the rest of the world, that's going to take at least 10 years.
Yep. It is going to be. Yes, thank you. You don't have to say it every time. You just push yourself.
3.
What do we think, 10? Because I said 10 years 3 times?
3. 3 points. All right, then. What do you consider your vision of the metaverse compared to what you saw on Ready Player One?
I don't know, but if I want to walk around looking at myself, do I need to get one of those mirror visions?
Yes.
I mean, I can't imagine anything better. You know, just walk around looking at myself all day. That's better than the Metaverse. That's like the Meverse. So, you know what's interesting about Ready Player One is when that movie came out, it seemed so futuristic. And nobody could imagine that was a real thing. No one was actually talking about Metaverse. But I feel like in crypto, what year did that movie come out? 2016? 2018. I feel like in 2018, within like a year of that movie coming out, you started to hear whispers about a real Metaverse. You started to hear whispers of how crypto could be involved in it. You know, those were conversations we were having very early on in this. And you know what's even more interesting is I made this video about how, you know, going all in on the Metaverse, like this is the next move, this is what we're doing as a channel. And then I had no idea that same week Facebook was going to rebrand. And if Facebook rebranding to Meta does not,
Because of you.
well, I didn't want to say it, guys, but we are living in the Meverse. So, no, I had no idea they were going to do that. Now, we did know that they were doing some work with the Metaverse because we had seen it in, I think it was a $50 million investment, which isn't that much money for a company like Facebook. We also saw that they were, you know, we know that they bought Oculus, which they're now going to rebrand to MetaQuest, and so we knew a lot of stuff like that, but to really look at now where they're moving to, and that we
Oh, that sounds fun.
what happened? So Facebook, where was? Wow.
Sounds like scream therapy.
Yeah.
There's Logan inflating balloon.
Was that shit in you? So the thing is though, is in all reality, like this is the future, it's not that far away. Facebook is moving us towards that, but thankfully, thanks to crypto and decentralization, we have an alternative. I don't think Facebook is really prepared for how much people hate them. I think they're gonna have a really hard time because older people, like people my age, a little bit younger, you know, millennials and yeah, pretty much millennials and up, they hate Facebook with everything. It's a generation older than us, I guess the Generation X, that they're all like, they love it because they share pics with their grandkids. But people my age hate it. And kids now today, they also hate it because they think it's something cool for their parents. So they're not prepared for the pushback that they're gonna have on their metaverse. And people are so tired of them stealing everybody's data and using us as products. And so the metaverse in a decentralized fashion is gonna give us the opportunity to be able to take, stake a new claim out there in the digital landscape that we lost into Facebook.
Great answer. It's going to give you -5 points though, because here's the deal. It's going to take about 30 seconds. And if you watch the show on YouTube, you know that we've got this show in which you get a 10-second countdown. And I wish I could have hit that about 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, sorry, Justin. Sorry, I changed it.
Yeah. Okay. Great answer though. Seth, what about you?
So with the Metaverse, I think that there is obviously a huge pushback that's incoming. Facebook just had they haven't read the rumors. Even before they announced this whole switch to Meta, there was a mass exodus from Facebook and other social media platforms. In the publishing space, we've been talking about the holy grail of decentralized video hosting that somehow also gives you good organic discovery for years, maybe for longer than this whole push towards the Metaverse. Maybe since before Ready Player One came out. I think that if we do into something that's like the Metaverse from Ready Player One, it's going to have to slowly build into things where, into this space where we have our own avatar, where we are removed from our own identity. We have to preserve our autonomy and our data privacy. And the only way we're going to do that initially is by choosing kind of these avatars that don't directly represent us. And that goes against everything that companies like Facebook stand for. Where they want you dots. They want to own every bit of your personally identifying information. So I don't know what's going to happen. But I think that we actually have to have a cultural change before it can happen safely.
I love that. Let's give yourself a 4 points. Now, I love what you said about the cultural change because we're going to get into that a little bit more when we get into more of the deep dive questions. So, great job. 4 points for you, Seth. Blood.
Let's go, Blood!
Let's hear it.
What is Ready Player One? I've never heard of it. Is it like Juice or Men's Society?
Yeah.
What about Pay in Full?
Wait a minute, John.
I really have not seen that movie, but I will say that many people forget about a game called Second Life, and I think they really were ahead of their time. And you've seen in the past many people make money, like they're living off of doing things in Second Life, and so I think we're actually probably closer to that being a very popular thing. I would say in the next 2 to 3 years, to be honest with you, with Meta, Facebook, they have what 2 billion people that they can at least try and vertically integrate. I think we're around the corner, to be honest with you.
I love it. I love it. 3 points for you. 3 points. Okay, well, so that will conclude the lightning round, and I hope you guys are warmed up, ready to go, ready to chat some Metaverse.
Oh, that was the lightning round.
Yeah, that's see,
Oh, I missed that.
see when you go long-winded, you kind of miss the point of the lightning round. But anyway, all right, Seth, I'm going to come to you on this first question. Now, in your opinion, what are, and just talking about that, what are the biggest privacy concerns with a company like Facebook or better with the rebrand, actually leading the charge into this metaverse with what would seem to be a war chest of money, technology resources, and a lot of stolen data?
Yeah, that last bit is the most important thing. Most people don't even realize that even if you're not on Facebook, Facebook basically has a dossier on you. They know you, even if you don't think that you've given them anything. So all this correlated data set that exists because whatever you're on, really big into Facebook and scrapbooking, both. And she thinks that Facebook is a scrapbooking platform. So unbeknownst to you, every one of your childhood photos, yes, including when we're in the bathtub, they're all on Facebook. And so, something that they don't talk about very openly, some of the open source technologies that they stole years ago, like 10 years ago, to be able to do facial detection and then facial recognition, they've been running those algorithms for the better part of 10 years. This stuff isn't new. They already have a graph on your personally identifying information. So all the other stuff is actually secondary because they monetize that. And so they finally realized what they had, they started running ads and doing streaming. By the time we thought that there was some kind of an advertising platform on Facebook, they had all that stuff captured, locked in. So they own us. Even those of us who think we're abstaining, they own us. So with personal data privacy, one of the only things we can do is begin to what's called poison the web. Give them junk data. That's pretty much one of our only lines of defense as users of these platforms. And then moving forward, we further and further abstract our identity from all these platforms, and we build an avatar that's of our choosing, not just the previous data set that they've been controlling and manipulating for the better part of a decade.
Thank you. Give yourself a few points, audience. What do you think?
5 points.
5.
Now, I did want to say, like, throughout like this question kind of period that we're going through right now, I would encourage the rest of you guys to chime in. Like, so if you have something kind of in a rebuttal or something to say about what Seth said,
I'd love
please pop in.
I'd love to add on to that. I think that the hate for Zuck and Meta is actually the best advertising that could ever happen to the decentralized concepts. I think it's just similar to Libra when that was a whole thing, whenever that was that 2 or 3 years ago? That concept was that they were going to come out with a digital wallet and then everybody was going to then rush to Bitcoin and Ethereum. So they were like, okay, Zuck, you're annoying. I'm going to go see how I can do this elsewhere. So I think that the hate train towards Facebook is a wonderful, wonderful thing. I don't think that it's a bad thing for everybody in this room. I think it's a great thing.
But especially on this technology, you have to really continue to educate people because it can be used against the uninformed, right? So we just have to make sure people understand Meta, Facebook Meta is not Metaverse and what we're doing and community building. So I think it's just important that we continue to show people the difference. They're not the same.
Something like playing off of what you just said, and then Steve, kind of what you just said. This question is going to come to you. Now, you are also a new father yourself within the last year. What are some security measures that you think are going to be needed in order to address places like the Metaverse, where obviously, a lot of the platforms that are building, especially in the crypto space, are decentralized. We know what is going on the decentralized internet. A lot of bad things. So what kind of protocols need to be in place in order to protect children or those that are more vulnerable?
Yeah, it's a great question. So one of the things that I did do on the father note, and I think that's a little.
That's mine.
There's a baby.
Excuse me, wife, if you could
Put that baby in
I think
the
she's giving me
metaverse.
points actually. I think that's Justin's baby.
Give the baby a, she's so.
5 points for the baby.
I was the baby.
10 points.
Go ahead, sir.
So, one of the things that I did was the month that my son was born, I set up an email account for him, set up a Bitcoin and Ethereum wallet for him, sent him like $20 each. And each 6 months, I send him an email, to that email, something, sweet and whatnot. And the idea is that he has a ledger and that everything's backed up to his ledger. And for birthdays, holidays, stuff like that, I just send stuff to his ledger. When he's old enough, I'm gonna give him the keys to the ledger, pretty much. That's how I'm playing it.
That's really cool. That's cool. My daughter is a Bitcoiner. I haven't set anything up. Well, I guess we did set up an email address. I love that idea, and I think that we'll probably put that into play for all. Beautiful. Give yourself some points. Blood. Now, some of the things we're talking about with the metaverse, and we're going to see society change. A lot of things are going to change. Whether it's business. I mean, think about even like restaurants, right? People, if you get sucked into the metaverse, you're not going to go to a restaurant anymore. Right? And that's just an example, but what are some of the biggest changes that we'll see in society as a whole as we get to a more mainstream metaverse?
Commerce, I think, the digital age of, creating things in our world is going to take over. I can see really, like in 20 years, the metaverse having its own GDP tracking system or number, right? Because I think it's going to be that big. With more people, jobs being eliminated from AI and, blockchain, the tech period, it's going to continue to eliminate jobs that aren't going to be placed. So I think people are going to move to the metaverse to make it live. So
I think you're absolutely right. And it's really going to be interesting to see which industries we lose. Because there will be some downfall. I mean, it's just the way it goes. It's casualty of war.
Almost anything that does not involve human interaction. Counselors, pastors, psychologists, those are very safe jobs.
Right, talk about
Actually, there was an interview that Mark Zuckerberg did with Gary Vee a couple weeks ago, and he talks about churches using the metaverse to do like meetings. So the potential idea that we could be moving our workplaces, I mean, if you look what happened in 2020 with COVID, and people staying at home and working from home in remote locations, going to Zoom meetings, those things will eventually be replaced with things like the metaverse as well. And when I said earlier, like 2 to 3 years, me seeing the metaverse and a Ready Player One start to develop, I'm saying that from a centralized perspective. That does not include anything to do with blockchain technology or cryptocurrency. I mean, we're going to have battles of metaverses that are going to be centralized databases versus decentralized databases, if you want to call it that. But that's just to explain a little bit why I was saying 2 to 3 years. Because from a centralized perspective, I mean, we can see just with cryptocurrency, you have a centralized blockchain like Solana, yeah, you can have fast throughput, but then you have to turn off your blockchain when you have issues. So you have that centralization problem, and those are the things that we need to away from when it comes to this planet. We need to decentralize as many things as we can possibly decentralize and put the power back into the hands of we, the people.
Give yourself 5 points. So wait, we're going to have baby Jesus in the metaverse?
Baby Jesus. Big baby Jesus.
Here's the sounds announced baby Jesus.
I worry a bit about that because imagine that this is your resource for an AA meeting. Do you really think that Facebook and Meta can be entrusted with the sordid details of your and my addiction? Right? So like, so that's your thing, huh? So it's okay, your secret's safe with us.
Well, I tell you what, Digital Budweiser is going to sponsor your AA meeting. They're going to put ear.eth and FTs all over the wall, so they're trying to call you to come back. They don't want you to be alcoholic.
There was a great conversation with Naval Ravikant about the future and how he said that with things like the metaverse, blockchain, it's going to allow people to actually pursue their creativity, and we're just going to automate a lot of the other jobs and everything out, which is a bleak way of looking at some of the infrastructure jobs and stuff like that. But if every person gets to do creative things every day that you love and you're passionate about, is that so bad if everybody can do something?
Well, think about this though. Here's what's so interesting, is that that's the tension that we're seeing right now. Why do you think Arby's can't get enough workers to stay open past 6 o'clock on a Sunday?
Because they've got the meat.
Well, because they have the meat. They have the meat, blood. Where's the meat? They have the meat. Arby's does not stand for roast beef, by the way. That's it. But listen, here's the true story. But here's the thing. We're seeing this tension right now exist between what people feel like they have to do to survive and what people feel like they want to do. And nobody really today wants to go and work at McDonald's. Nobody wants to go work a corporate job that they really hate. And we're living in this weird tension of this overlap between the way things were done and the way things were going to be done. Because we don't actually have the technology right now today to do away with all the other jobs that people hate. But in the future, we will. And I personally think we're much further away from a lot of this than people on the stage have said. Because I said probably a year and a half or 2 years ago that I project it'll be 25 to 50 years before the majority of our world economy is happening in gaming and in the metaverse. I still think that's going to be how it's going to happen. The long and the short of it is you have to let older. Now this is going to sound terrible. This is going to sound terrible. The generations that do not want to adapt to this kind of technology en masse. Like, I know, obviously, if anybody in here is 60 years old or up, like, you're in the know. Like, you are a cutting-edge person. The majority of your peers are not, okay? So the older generation will continue to push back against this stuff until time goes by, and in 25 to 50 years, all people pretty much know the digital life, and they value the digital life. So I think it's going to be a long time before this actually happens. It's not going to be an easy transition. I think when you go back to, it's just like almost anything else in life. Like, the more of an expert you become, the longer you're in something, like kind of almost the further away things feel. I know in 2017 and 2018, like, we all felt like adoption was right around the corner, and it's taken a lot longer than we would have thought, but it's still happening, and it's still happening pretty fast. But I think this whole metaverse thing, this idea that we're all going to be living in it and making money in it, we're still at the very, very beginning, early stages of this. If you look at crypto right now, crypto is not the vast percentage of our world economy. Around Powell's are about $200 trillion in crypto, in the crypto markets, and 10, 20 years, well, that's more money almost that exists in the world as it is already. So when you look at that, and you think about the metaverse, I just think it's a little bit further off than people think, and I think we're going to have to see a lot of change before we get there. But it is weird seeing this tension where people want to be in the metaverse now. The younger generation who are digitally inclined, they want to be in the metaverse now. They want to be doing creative stuff now. The number one job, you guys know the number one job kids want is? I know.
Gamer. On two.
Number one is YouTuber, number two is influencer.
Same.
What up?
Gamer.
Well, you know what I'm saying. I'm just saying. Gamer is up there as well. But it's so interesting. Like, I grew up wanting to be a professional athlete. Like, that's what I wanted to be. That was what every kid I didn't want to be. And then, spoiler, I didn't make it. I didn't play some pickleball. But like, it's number 8 today. Professional athlete. It's just funny how I'm doing the number one job. I still wish I was doing great.
So I know that. I think the number one job description though of adults right now that is non-skilled labor is driver. Bro, my Uber driver asked me about crypto. He wanted to learn. There's a knowledge gap. Even like, and especially in some of these places, there's a skill gap. And I mean, it really hit home. Yo soy cubano americano. For those in the audience who know. When I said it, right here in the audience, it hit really close to home to have somebody say like, yeah, I'm in a struggle. I'm trying to make something happen. But then he shows up with this crypto.com wallet. He has no idea how to hold his own sovereign keys. And it broke my heart that I couldn't spend more time with him because he had to take his next Uber drive.
right? Like, there's not time, there's not money, there's heart, there's will, but there's also a knowledge and an onboarding gap that we gotta get past. And these are the folks that are unfortunately, they're gonna fall through those cracks, right? When we try to make that transition to a metaverse where there's something meaningful for these folks to do after Tesla replaces all.
Well, okay.
Hey, Tim, you had mentioned that younger people would be more prone to want to go into the metaverse because they want to be creative. Do you think about the perspective of the state of the world today and how it's been like past 10 years and how shitty of an existence it is, and how some people don't actually live the lives they live, and it would just be much better to live in some digital VR world? I mean, there's a lot of people that are in that position where they just don't like their life. A lot of people have to work a 9-to-5 job, they're working a third or quarter of their year to go towards taxes, and they're just doing this repeat cycle. So
Yeah, but the vast majority of those people don't know they're in the cycle.
right.
And I think that's the big problem. The people that do know they're in the cycle, they're the ones that are in this room. They're the people that are seeking after something different. Those are the people that are doing the side hustles because they see that they're going to be stuck doing status quo forever. The vast majority of those people don't know that they're trapped in it. And you know what? Here's the real truth. The truth is we need those people. We need those people, some of those people that don't know that they're trapped in it, because I still want Arby's to be open at 6 o'clock when I go on a Sunday. The one time I went in last year, I did want it to be open, and it wasn't open. I do need somebody to make my meats.
The world is garbage.
That's
Boycott Arby's.
The world is garbage, man. And I think that, look, you have people that are innovators, you have people that are curious, you have people that lead, that are leaders. But if you ever try to turn someone who's not a leader into a leader, it doesn't work. They're not built that way. So, and this is why, this is kind of a larger conversation. It's really off topic, but that's why almost any person you talk to in this room, you will get along great with them. And you'll be like, wow, you speak my language, you understand what I'm doing. How many of us, our very best friends, are in crypto? It's because people in crypto have a certain mindset. We are the curious innovators out there. And everybody's not like us. You ever try to talk to somebody about crypto that just doesn't get it, and you can't put it through their skull because they don't want to get it. They're not built to get it. So, consider yourself very lucky to be kind of in this select group of people that are, leading the change in technology in the world, and that are, reaping the financial benefits of it. Because it's not for everybody. It's kind of like, I don't want to go speaking the gospel in here, but it's kind of like in the Bible. Like in the Bible, there's a part where Jesus sends the disciples out. And he says, go talk to them. If they don't listen, wipe your feet. Well, you wipe the dust off your feet and move on. And that's kind of how it is, I think, in crypto. Like a lot of us, we spend too much time trying to talk to people that don't care and don't want to listen. Find people that want to listen.
Yeah, thank you. If you apply the same topics, make sure that you talk to yourself, like Ben said, for being here. If you're watching on YouTube, give yourself a round of applause. Give yourself a give yourself more people in the space room because you are the early. Something that I heard pretty much every one of you guys say, and I'm going off kind of my question list because this is something I heard a lot about. And you're like, oh, it's the young people getting ready, and oh, they're not really ready to get into the metaverse. Okay, well, during the pandemic, we saw the shift to students and teachers e-learning. We saw the shift to people in the corporate world. Zoom, where you get 1,000 times more Zoom calls a year in your life, right? Yes. So with that being said, and this question, and I'd like this to be a discussion for everybody, because this is something I think is important. Being a new father myself, something that just popped in my head. Okay, so now you've got the metaverse. If you are in a rural place, in the middle of nowhere, if you are in a low-income area, and you don't have the same opportunity that someone does in a much better school district, does the metaverse now put us all on the same playing field to where you've got the same opportunity? There's no excuse to not be the best that you can be, right?
I don't think so.
We also have YouTube today. I mean, you could learn a lot of things. Like, people could replace their education with something like YouTube. But I definitely think that the metaverse is going to create a lot more opportunity. So that way you don't have to necessarily attend a school that's local to you. You could attend a school that maybe would be in another country because the curriculum is something that the parents want. So you can do that option. I think they're going to give a lot more options for people to be able to expand out. But I think we already have resources now that helps us to self-educate. And I think that if we don't take advantage of that,
but you're not going to send your 5-year-old to a YouTube school.
Yeah, it's a different kind of self-education, though. Like this is kind of like practical self-education, you know, and self-learning. Whereas when you look at like, I mean, I have kids, you know, my kids.
You can learn science stuff, you can learn real education.
Well, you also have to think about, you also have to think about learning styles too. Like there are kids that are suffering today because Zoom does not fit their learning style, you know, and that is really big. And you also think about, it's not just, and I don't know, like this is me as a parent, and you know, our kids, we've been homeschooled, or my kid's been homeschooled since kindergarten. We had a bad experience in kindergarten with my oldest son, and basically like he was ahead of a lot of the other kids, and we went to the teacher and we said, you know, what can we do, you know, because he's saying he was like crying because he was so bored. He doesn't misbehave like I did when I was a kid. So we would just sit there and be kind of dying while everybody else is, you know, trying to learn, and he knew it all already. And the teacher said, oh, don't worry, eventually he'll catch up. Like eventually everybody else will catch up to him. And I was like, well, that's not really how you feed intellect, you know, is to sit there and wait, dumb kids down so eventually other kids can catch up to them. Like that's not an effective strategy, especially like some of these places are talking about getting rid of their gifted programs and stuff like that. It backs up. But when we started homeschooling our kids, like obviously we realized that the other huge fundamental aspect of education is the school experience itself, you know, and becoming, you know, integrated socially. And we're lucky our kids are not socially awkward, they never have been. But, you know, a lot of homeschool kids are because they don't get that social integration. And so you have to think about it more than just the education. But maybe we're moving to a place, and this is like really weird and scary, like maybe we're moving to a place where being, you know, integrated sociologically doesn't really matter as long as you're integrated digitally.
Yeah.
That's scary.
And even Zuck, despite his hate, he said something in his Meta launch or announcement where he said, we started with pictures and we moved into text and video sharing, and now you're actually going to feel presence of another human. And that could be the transition that what you're talking about.
Oh, we already have that, Santa.
Of
Getting presents from other people.
presence, as in my presence next to JJ right now.
I got I already said my same pride.
But I feel like that could be maybe in a weird future, we're in the midst of a shift towards that presence being a social interaction instead of it being IRL like right now, and that being more valuable than IRL, which is just very uncomfortable to think about, and maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't, but nobody knows.
Yeah, so the way you put it, I agree with you as far as the, some kids learn differently, right? So that's when the meta will help with those kids. But as far as access to information, I think we already have the internet that's able to get that kid in Cambodia or wherever, the information they need. In that case, I don't think the metaverse will change or improve that, but it will improve the experience of the whole educational world.
Very exciting to see where it's all going to go. And, obviously, you've got different opinions on how long it's going to take us to get there, and when we'll get there and how it'll all look. But I know we're all excited to be building space, especially you, because we do a lot of it. We've got about 6 minutes left. That runs me out of questions. I figured you guys would talk a little bit more on that last one. And it was really, my question was about education, but I guess maybe we can expand into the whole business and corporate world and how that changes.
I'd love to talk about work in terms of digital jobs and the impact that Metaverse is going to have on that.
Let's go.
I think that we are underestimating the 2 billion gamers out there in terms of them not even understanding that they can own a piece of the game that they're actually playing and generating a full-time income. And that hasn't really struck yet. Like, people are still intimidated. There's no real education going on yet. And once that does hit, and you have these literally billions with a B amount of gamers coming into the metaverse, digital jobs are going to completely change. When you have people that are building, used to build in Minecraft and Roblox, they're building now as full-time architects for Nike in these new metaverses because no one else has the skill set to do it. You have this shift of digital jobs to the younger generation that's digital native. And I've talked to literally like 14-year-olds that are more skilled than some of the like best architects I've ever seen. in the metaverse, and they're building for brands that I can't even mention, but they're huge companies coming in right now. So digital jobs are changing hands from the analog into the digital as we're on stage.
No, that's a great point. That's another question that I know, especially with New Money Gang, the channel that I'm associated with my buddy Brian, somewhere in the room. One of our main focuses is to really explore how, because our mission statement of our channel is to turn your passion into profit. And obviously, if this is the life that we're living and the things that we're in, the metaverse and making money within the metaverse is going to be very important to a lot of people. How do you do it? We know right now that you can buy land, you can sit on it, you can sell it, you can rent it out, you can advertise. There are just a handful of ways you can make money. That's another way you can get involved with the company. What are some other ways that you guys see people actually being able to make, whether it's just a living or become wealthy within the space?
So I think there's going to be some things we can't foresee right now, sort of like known unknowns at this point. So I feel like what Steve was saying before about how he's seeing 14-year-old kids, and I'd love to know at some other point, like, what they look like. Are these neurotypicals or are these neurodivergent kids? Are these kids with mosaic learning disorders like autism and ADHD? Because that's my world. If my kids were pulled out of school right now and we went to all these like faceless, very, very sterilized models only, they would suffer, but then they'd recover. And then they'd outperform most adults because you get hyper-focused on building with tools that they understand better than anybody else in the world. And then they don't feel like a machine that they're integrated into. So I think that we're gonna see sort of like a bit of yes, unknown Frankenstein's monster, right? And we run the current of like whatever that thing is through all these other parts that we've collected, and then we remove it from the other systems that we think we know. So yeah, I think it's gonna be really difficult for us to know what new business models come out of the mind of a 12-year-old kid who's completely neurodivergent on not just the other side of the tracks, but the other side of the world.
Yeah, and I participated in a shoe drop, a sneaker drop in the metaverse that was for wearables. It could go on my avatar. They were camo sneakers. They were amazing. But the guy sold out.
Could you even see them?
Oh yeah, I can see him. He sold out in 5 minutes, and it was the equivalent of a year's salary that he made in 5 minutes. I mean, he took a long time to build those, but ultimately, this creative person made an entire year's salary on a drop in says 2 minutes. Oh, we have more. We have more.
Yeah, we have more justice.
Forget it,
There's more
there's more.
time and stuff to say. So I want to were you done, Steve?
Yeah, by then in the
Yeah. So we actually, you guys who watch my channel, I'm not an actual gamer. I like playing Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat, Johnny Cage,
Yeah.
heck yeah.
No, I'm a typical Sub-Zero guy. I woke up doing I know it's cheap, but I will, pull your spine out of your head. So, the thing is that I saw very early on where this was going, just kind of like, I wasn't into mining, but I saw where crypto was going early on. This metaverse is going to take over. It's going to be absolutely huge. We all know that. And so we started getting land in metaverses years ago. We've actually, that's a good idea. We've actually, we have a lot of land in Sandbox, some we bought. We bought all of it, we paid for all of it, but some of it I think we maybe got like a special deal on. They made sure we got a 12 by 12. The other plots we have there, we paid for just like regular people and got it on the auctions, stuff like that. We saw this very early on when nobody cared about Sandbox. It launched on Binance, and we remember, or I remember, when we started talking about it before there was even a token. If you watch the channel for a long time, you know that. Because we see where all of this is going with Metaverse. But it's more about just buying tokens. And I think about this thing called, what Seth was talking about, like the Joe Harvey window. You guys know what that is? It's like you got 4 quadrants, and one quadrant is known knowns. It's things that you know, that you have known unknowns, then you have unknown knowns, and then you have unknown unknowns. So it really helps you capture like what you know about any subject, what you don't know about it, and then there are things that you won't be able to figure out until you find them experientially. And so I talk all the time about how much opportunity there is in Metaverse, but what are those opportunities? Well, very easily, buying tokens, obviously, buying and reselling land, that's very obvious. Beyond that, it's what we call a blue ocean opportunity. It means that there's so much opportunity out there for things that are going to be created in the metaverse for you guys to make money with, that the most important is all of it, like a lot of people that come up to me and they say, well, what are you talking about? Like, what is the actual thing that we can do right now to make money in the metaverse? I don't know. You don't know either. Just like you don't know, I don't know. But I know that it will be. And so that means you're right on the forefront, just asking those questions and being on the lookout for things like that. Like, let's look at decentralized exchanges, for instance, okay? How much money have some of these companies like Uniswap Labs, like how much have they made with decentralized exchanges? They crush it. Any company that does a decentralized exchange that takes off, they get a very, very small kind of fee, but it adds up. They make so much money. Guess what? In 2017, nobody heard of a decentralized exchange. Nobody knew what one was. Exchanges in crypto were brand new. Coinbase had been around since 2014, but it, you know, Binance is the one that really came in and changed the game. It launched in 2017. So nobody could really foresee like what an opportunity to create a decentralized exchange would be. Well, you know, the first people that came up with that idea, they failed at it miserably. It would have been Ether Delta. Yeah, Ether Delta. Yeah. And Ford Delta. And let me tell you, it took me like 4 to 6. How many hours did it take Justin to do a transaction for what did we buy? What was it? Was it SIG?
I think it was Node token, Internet Node token.
Internet Node token?
And then we never got it out.
No, we never got it out. So it basically took us like 4 to 6 hours to figure out how to do one transaction.
At least.
At least, and that may be being generous. They failed miserably. So the point is there can be really great ideas that come out on how to make money in the metaverse, and other people may try it and they may fail. But look at what those early ideas are and think about those and think about how you can capitalize on some of those. You don't have to be a developer. You don't have to be, someone that has a lot of technical knowledge. All you gotta do is be able to figure out how to connect people. We hired 4 professional Minecraft builders to build our land and sandbox. You know where we found them out? We found them in Discord. Just in a Discord group. Started putting feelers out. They're kids. Just like he was talking about. They're kids. They built a whole city for us in Sandbox. They have a BitBoy statue. I don't know how everyone to realize. In the metaverse, it's there. So we're really excited about it. And think about that, like building, like that's a good opportunity. But there are going to be so many ways for you to make money in the metaverse. And just think about this. Almost anything that you can do in real life, you're going to be able to do in the metaverse.
Absolutely. Very well said. I love that. So I think at this point, we've probably got a couple minutes left. Does anybody in the crowd have a question for anybody else? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out a lot of the things you're talking about, particularly with kids. Like I just got married and my wife has a 10 and a 14-year-old. And it's funny because even with like my PFPs, like if I'm getting any type of thing, I'm like, hey, what looks cool to you? And they're like, that one's stupid, get this one. So I'm watching them play games, and as frustrating and infuriating as that is, especially watching them be on Zoom last year at school, but they're really playing games the whole time, they're not even on Zoom. I realized, well, wow, there is value here because these kids are like building this stuff, and like I see they're like playing around in the sandbox, and they're doing all these things that like separately I'm trying to learn. I'm like, oh, these kids are already ahead of the game. So I think you're very on point with that. But I really wanted to point out like something for me that is scary is I run a lot of like men's groups, and I run a lot of things that like help people digital detox. And I think that a big thing is for people just to step out of that. But it seems like with what you guys are saying, it's sucking them in. And we think that this is something decentralized, but it's just centralizing everything for like in a new way that we don't know. So like just this experience.
Well, I think you're talking about the philosophical decentralization.
Correct.
Different than technical decentralization.
Yes. So I just want to ask you guys, like, for you, what is your experience in that, like, just being able to be here and to see each other, and it's not PFPs or whatever, and you get to, like, how much does that interaction mean to you guys compared to, like, what you see that's going? And I know you kind of touched on that, how it's a little scary, but, like, if you kind of want to go into that a little bit.
I like to reach out and touch people.
Edit that out of the stream, guys.
This show is done on BitBoy's channel, and it's always done virtually. I do this from my home in North Carolina. You're in your home in Detroit, and so being together in person is one of the most priceless things that I can say, period. Like, I would much rather be with everybody here on a personal level and put my phone down and not here on social media. When I'm here, when I'm at these events, I don't get on social media. I'm not sitting here showing pictures of people I take. I do that maybe when I'm in the bathroom or maybe when I go home. But when I'm here, and I try to be here and in the now, in the moment, because that's the only moment that we actually have is now, the present.
Or the metaverse can replicate that though?
No. Look, can I tell a quick story? You have time for a quick story?
Well, 3 minutes. 3 minute quick story.
Okay, I can get a 3 minute man, let's go. Listen, here's, so Justin and I, we used to do a podcast called Beards and Bitcoins. Everybody loved Beards and Bitcoins, and nobody watched it, it was a really fun show. And they're doing that, Justin and I met, and within like one day of meeting each other, we decided to start a podcast in 2018. And we decided, like, it was struggling a little bit, and we couldn't figure out what it was. And we made the decision to start filming it in person. So we booked a studio in Austin, and I would go there once every like 2 months. We filmed 7 or 8 episodes. It is amazing the difference in synergy between people when you're live and when you're doing it, when you're doing it on a Zoom. The non-verbal cues that you can give in person, while they look the same, when you're in person, it's like, you know when I'm about to stop talking and you start talking. We never talked over each other, which when we do the podcast and we do interviews virtually, we talked over each other all the time. And it's just like amazing how in person you only get that. I mean, we're designed to be relational people, I think. That's why we thrive on people. So,
Can I just say that when you guys had me on with Beards and Bitcoin, I was so flattered because I thought that I had a strong beard compared to Justin's. It's like, I feel so special.
I didn't have a beard and I got to be on.
I was exclusively
you just spit shade at me, see?
For your beard?
Yeah, because you said I was on the show and, Justin's beard. I was a little bit longer back then.
Who won? Who won the show? What's the points?
I have 38,239,746. I should have made it 21 million.
With that being said, everyone on this stage besides myself is a winner, because the host.
You're a winner too, man.
Well, the host is a winner, that's all. Thank you, I appreciate it. So everybody wins. But I would like Seth to leave us with, typically on the show, if you watch on YouTube, blood. Seth, leave us with your 30-second parting words on anything, doesn't have to be on Metaverse, just on anything that you want everyone here to listen.
While you're doing push-ups.
No, do not do push-ups.
No push-ups.
I will step on your back.
I would let him.
So, as far as like
Stand up, Steph.
oh gosh, okay. So,
Make some noise for Seth.
Sometimes we get this tunnel vision. Sometimes we get stuck in just this myopia. We're so close to it, and we can't see it. Right? As was mentioned before, the fact that you're here means that you're already tuned into the metaverse, you're already tuned into cryptocurrencies, you're already tuned into blockchain in a way that is going to put you ahead of anybody you know. You're going to be the guru that helps lead your friends and family into whatever the future is, whatever it looks like. That's going to be you. You're going to be their guide. But not if you're wrapped up in knots. We do have to dopamine detox. We do have to step back every now and then. If you leave, if you don't sharpen the saw, right, it gets dull. If you don't unstring a bow, it stops shooting arrows. So every now and then, if we don't just step back and realize, like, why are we even building in this direction, then it's all for nothing. That's just what I want to say. At the end of the day, it's just crypto. Yes, it's everything we're building right now, but it's also just crypto. That's what I want to say.
Thank you. All right, well, this is very